Sorry. Hello again, Rink Rats. I am Sean Fitzgerald, your guest host for Andy Campbell, who's under the weather tonight. Tonight, we welcome back Dana Gray of the Rockford IceHogs, and we're going to go over our Rockford IceHogs playoff preview. Dana, how are we doing tonight?
I'm doing well, Sean. Thanks for having me. As always, this is always a good time to talk IceHogs, and no better time than leading up to the first round of the playoffs right now. It's been a blast watching NHL over the last few days and just getting me fired up for what's to come here.
Awesome. And welcome back, Jimmy O'Malley, one of the usual suspects. How are we doing?
We're doing all right. Really hyped up for this 3-game series Rockford has coming up against the Chicago Wolves, in-state rivals.
Yeah, in-state rivals. Yeah. Before we get into the playoff stuff, Dana, I'd like to ask you about some of the new faces in Rockford.
Yeah.
Specifically, Aiden Thompson. What can you tell about Aiden Thompson?
He's fast as heck. He's only played a handful of games since he joined last weekend, coming out from Denver after they lost in the Frozen Four. But I think probably in the 4 games that he's played, he's been the fastest skater on the ice. He was playing with another former Pioneer in Cole Gutman, who's a pretty speedy guy as it is. And there were times that it felt like Thompson was the one that was driving the line, really. So pretty impressive stuff with him. He got his first assist, his first pro point a few nights ago in just a wild game against Grand Rapids that turned into a bit of a melee. But he's been really, really fun. Super, super nice guy. Clearly, as I think a lot of the post-college kids or guys that are going to, start making their way in the last portion of the season, they all say they kind of just want to be sponges and try and get as much information from more of the veteran guys or even coaches as well. And, Thompson's been no different than that. So I'm excited to see what, especially he's I don't know, maybe 8 or 9 times been an inch or two away from that first goal. So kind of have the feeling that once one comes, hopefully it's floodgates for him.
Yeah, speaking of young guys that have recently come up and also looking for his first goal, Tage Harding, so far 8 games, 3 assists, looking for his first goal. I remember the first thing I said when I watched him on TV was, "Damn, he's big." What can you tell me about this big kid who came from Providence, if I'm correct? Spent his college years in Providence. What can you tell me about this massive defenseman that Rockford has on an ATO?
Yeah, the size certainly stands out for sure. But I think what I've been impressed with is that he's a really smooth skater too, which isn't necessary with someone who's 6'7" and has a reach like that. So I've been impressed to see him move the puck up and out of his own zone, and even just making little plays down low below the goal line have been pretty impressive. And I think with what you see with a lot of the younger guys when they're making the jump from the NCAA ranks or juniors, but especially NCAA into pros, it's literally every game, every period, you feel like they're getting more and more comfortable. And they'll usually be pretty vocal about it. And was talking with Tage before the game on Saturday night in Chicago, in Rosemont, sorry. And have to be clear about that, especially this week. And he was just saying that exactly, that every single game is a little bit more of a learning curve, and he's trying to pick up some different stuff. I saw him, I think there was a practice last week when they were staying out late, and Colin Felix, who leads the Hogs with 6 fights this year, definitely one of the tougher customers in the division, was giving Tage some fighting lessons, it looked like, out on the ice. So he's picking up more and more things as it goes. And as I kind of alluded to with that game against GR, when things were going crazy, he's right in the middle of it. And I think his size is going to bring that attention. But you mentioned the points too. He had back-to-back games with assists and won a really, really nice dish in a game last weekend where he totally could have shot the puck from the circle and just had half a second extra of patience to look to the back door. So that was pretty cool to see from a guy that's just getting his taste of pro hockey.
Yeah, I don't know many guys who would want to pick a fight with Tage Harding. I mean, being that size, I don't know who would be dumb enough to do that. Before Gate picks a fight with me, I don't know if I said this, the intro, this is season 8, episode 28. So I'm not sure if I mentioned that earlier. So just wanted to get that in there. Dana, I had another question. Cameron Rowe, the new goalie in camp there with the IceHogs. What have you seen from him?
I have just seen him in practice. He backed up on Saturday night. I think that was a move that obviously he's had some great, college years at Wisconsin and Western Michigan and a local kid too. But with the Indy Fuel starting up in the playoffs, Ben Gaudreau has been the rookie goaltender that when something's gone on with either Comesso or Weeks, whether that be a call-up or an injury, Gaudreau's been the guy that's moved up from Indy, and with the Fuel starting their playoffs last week, just wanted to make sure, obviously, that he could be there for that ride, and hopefully it's a long one. I know they're battling with a good Toledo team, but that just allows him to stay down in Indy. So if, gosh forbid, something happens and you need someone to back up, or even the opportunity to give, Drew Comesso the full day off on Saturday, that's a good move there. So not necessarily expecting him to probably play playoff hockey here, especially the way that Drew Comesso has been playing, my goodness, but super, super nice guy, and hopefully a really good talent that can stick here with the IceHogs for some time, because he's proven himself at the college level.
Awesome.
Yeah, that's great to hear. And one last one, I think probably in terms of Blackhawks fans' excitement, probably the most interesting. This morning it was announced that first-round pick Merrick Van Acker was signed to the Rockford IceHogs, and he will be playoff eligible. What have you heard about his availability and how Mark Eaton plans to use him in his professional debut in a high-stakes arena?
Yeah, he is eligible. They're keeping it very close to the chest as far as what's going to happen with him. But I think, and we saw it last year around this time, even a guy like Lardis came in and just got to skate with the team and practice with some of those guys. And, Van Acker coming from Brantford and just coming off a great playoff run too. It was a point per game, which is pretty par for the course with those two guys in the Bulldogs, with him and Lardis just proven offensively. So excited to see where maybe he does make his way in for a game. We'll probably see in due time. I know that's not the most exciting answer, but the plan is for him hopefully to practice with the team tomorrow. And obviously he's someone that's been playing high intensity hockey, so maybe there is a fit in there that seamlessly works its way.
Awesome. Let's bring it back to the playoff series with the Wolves now. What is your what's your thoughts on how the Hogs and the Wolves stack up? Because I know that obviously they play a bunch. They play in the Illinois Cup. We've seen them play. There's Levshunov checked a guy, got suspended for a game. So how do they stack up in terms of this matchup?
Yeah, I'd say so. They played 12 times this year. Rockford played Grand Rapids 12 times, Iowa 12 times, and Chicago 12 times. And if you were to look at the stats and the season series, this would look like a pretty one-sided matchup. Rockford only won 3 games out of those 12. They were 3-7, 1-1 against Chicago. I personally, I'm not just saying this out of bias, I have for a long, long time been a fan of taking the team that does not win the regular season series in playoffs. I just think from a psyche standpoint, the team that's had maybe more of the success feels that this is going to be an easier test. And obviously for the team that maybe hasn't found the regular season victories, feels like they have something to prove. And, Rockford got thwarted a little bit on Saturday night. And granted, that was playing with 10 forwards and 8 defensemen in Chicago. And also a game where the Wolves, statistically, from a standings standpoint, had a lot more to play for. So it's interesting. They're a really heavy team. I've noticed that in series that Rockford plays Chicago on back-to-back games, which has happened actually a couple times this season, the Hogs have won the second game and always come out really flying. It's kind of like they have to remind themselves how to play against a really heavy team, because they are kind of an anomaly a little bit in the Central Division. The Wolves are. They do have some skill for certain. They've got the top scoring rookie in the AHL in Bradley Nadeau. They've got some really talented guys on the back end, Scott Morrow, just lights it up offensively. Dominic Fensori as well. Ty Smith, kind of smaller puck moving guys. So they are a pretty balanced team, but with certainly that battle and heaviness element to it. And the final thing I'll say on the matchup, just as far as scouting the Wolves, is that their goaltending has been, for whatever reason, lights out against Rockford this year. Dustin Tokarski has played 5 games against Rockford. He's won all 5 of them. Spencer Martin's played 4 games, and he's won 3 of them. He had his a shutout on Saturday night against Rockford. So I know I just threw a lot at you that would give you good reason to feel like this is a matchup that's trending towards Chicago. Where I push back from the IceHogs side is that this is really the first time all season when they have what I would call the most complete lineup that they can. And you have everyone back down from Chicago, and Levshunov, Korchinski, Del Mastro, that trio on the back end is here. Even a Nolan Allen you could throw in there. And then offensively over the last couple months, Brett Seney, Joey Anderson have been dealing with some injuries. Zach Sanford, Cole Gutman, Jerry Mayhew, guys that are, have a few more veteran games under their belt. They've been getting some rest too, since Rockford's just been locked into this 5th and final playoff spot for a while. So now is really when we get to see the full lineup against Chicago. And I think Rockford's going to win. I feel pretty confident about what they can do with a full group, and especially when they're feeling good about their game.
And after all saying all that, who do you think the IceHogs X factor will be? Who will put them over the edge in this series?
Yeah, I hope it's not too much of a cop-out answer, but I think it's Drew Commesso. He's been phenomenal since he came back from injury. He's had, in his last 15 starts, he's got a save percentage that's up over .950. He's gotten points in 12 of those games, and he's really just put his head down and gone to work. It's been really fun over the last month talking with him. We've talked with him a lot because he's had so many great games, whether that's pregame or postgame interview, and it's a lot of deflections towards how the team is playing in front of him and just trying to focus on himself. And he seems real dialed in. So I think that is the X factor for Rockford. If they get the goaltending that they have been over the last month or so from Commesso, they're going to be a really, really tough out. If I could throw one more, I guess that's not the most important position in the game. I look towards someone like Kevin Korchinski. The Rockford power play hasn't scored in its last 5 games. It's really struggled over the last couple of months with so many different guys going up and down. With Levshunov and Korchinski, those were your top 2 quarterbacks on the 2 units. So they've really kind of had to relearn and reassess things with, their full 2 units. But Korchinski's a guy that on the power play can really make an impact just from running that thing up top, and also the way he can rush the puck into the zone with the entries. I mean, so many times now you see, it seems like every team's entry, no matter what level in hockey, is skate the puck up to the red line, drop it off to someone with speed. And usually the guy carrying that puck is maybe a defenseman. And with Korchinski, what's so great is he can fake that drop pass and still has the skill and speed to even just take it in himself. So I'm excited to see what he can bring offensively, and maybe he can help the Rockford power play turn things around here a little bit.
Awesome. I know I'm saying awesome a lot, but that was just everything I could have hoped for with that answer. So, Jimmy, tough act to follow there. Go ahead, Jimmy.
I guess that's a tough one to follow. I'll follow with this. Essentially, from arena availability, Rockford kind of has the home ice advantage in this one. If it goes to a 3rd game, it will be in Rockford. How has that played into the psyche of the players? Hey, if we split the first 2, we got a home game on Sunday. We get the chance to clinch this at home. It has to be clinched in Rockford. Does that play at all into the players' mindset? Hey, we got home cooking for whoever wins this series.
I think absolutely. I was talking with a few folks earlier this week that this game on Wednesday night feels so big. I mean, you talk about it, especially from the standpoint of a 7-game series, right? When you're going in as the road team to start off a 7-game series, the goal is, okay, let's get one on the road and split. If you feel like you can, win that first and only game on the road, in Chicago, you come back home and you have, two chances basically to close it out. I should specify too that game on Sunday, technically, it will be a home game for the Wolves in the sense that they'll have last change, which can sometimes obviously make an impact, especially in those closer games and late game situations, and making sure what lineups you have out on the ice. But for Rockford to have home ice advantage, especially coming off of last Friday, there was a game against Grand Rapids that I've touched on, and it was pretty much a sellout, and just some folks on the staff saying it was just like the loudest they've heard the building in a really, really, really long time. So I think if that sort of home ice advantage is present on Friday and Sunday, if necessary, it makes a huge impact. I also kind of wonder how the players on the Wolves feel a little bit. You played, your heart out for 72 games to earn your standing spot. And I don't want to bash too much, but because you're building your team scheduled something else when, you presumably would be in the playoffs, you don't get to have that advantage of hosting a winner go home game. So I'm curious what that feels like. I'm sure from the other side, you could see it as a rallying cry for those Wolves players to want to go win it on the road as well. But it does add kind of an interesting wrinkle to the whole thing.
Yeah, I wonder if Allstate Arena booked Ice Spice in advance. I don't know if it's Ice Spice.
I've heard it's a rodeo. It would be easy to confirm, but I heard it was the rodeo.
Oh, okay. Well, that's even worse in my opinion. I totally lost what I was going to say. I'm sorry.
So yeah, if you want to go to the here, I'm going to look it up too, just because I'm so curious. I've been meaning to do this. If you want to go to the rodeo,
and I believe I read too, and maybe Jimmy had shared this, that if the Hogs had played Grand Rapids, there was also an arena availability issue with them too.
Yeah, it's pretty wild actually. If you look at the Rapids and Texas series that will be a best of 5, that 2 and that 3 in the Central Division. You can go look at their schedule, and even if you look on Van Andel Arena, which is the Grand Rapids Arena, you'll see all the availability, and it's pretty jammed up. GR in Texas is starting that best of 5 series next Tuesday, so in over a week. That's game 1. Game 2 is also in Grand Rapids and is the following Monday. They have 5 days off in between. I mean, it goes to, and everyone's, dealing with, obviously you want to schedule as much things as possible, and every arena and team is looking for the most revenue as possible. And you get these instances in this league where, you have to get a little bit creative, even in that sense, where Texas has home ice over Grand Rapids. It's a best of 5 series. They'll start 2 games on the road in Grand Rapids and then come home for 3 games on home ice in Texas. So just one of the little fun nuances about around this time of year. And of course, if Rockford's able to get through Chicago, they'll be taking on a Milwaukee team that's pretty close by too. So as far as travel wise and a path for the IceHogs, that's about as good as it gets right now.
And to explain to our listeners the difference in the format, so 2 plays 3 in a 5-game series, while 4 plays 5 in a 3-game series to start. How does that work?
Yeah, so basically, out of the 7-team division in the Central, 5 teams make the playoffs, and the top seed gets a bye, basically. So the number 1 seed, Milwaukee, they won the division this past weekend. They will play the winner of the 4-5. They call it a play-in series, the best of 3. Texas and GR, the 2 and 3 seeds, are already technically past that point, and they're starting up a best of 5 series, which will be on the same level or path in the bracket, if you will, of Milwaukee and whoever their opponent would be. That way you have your division semifinals, and then those 2 winners would face off. And it's crazy. I mean, the Central honestly is one of the easier ones in the league to keep track of. There's, out in the Pacific Division, the top 7 teams make the playoffs.
And don't they play less games, or there's some like the Pacific Division plays less games because of travel, and
there's a lot of especially with that division, there's even more than one best of 3 series. So and that didn't get closed out until it was a fun push to the playoffs.
Jimmy, do you have another question for Dana? If not, I've got some trivia for us.
I got a quick one. Oh boy, yeah, we love trivia.
It won't be that bad, I promise. It won't be like it won't be like Jimmy's last week asking us to name every player in the 2007 draft.
All right. All right. If you want the backstory, I did a trivia question in honor of Alec Martinez and Pat Maroon because it was their last game. So they were 16th and 17th in games played of the 2007 draft. I was like, you know what? Let's see if they can name all top 16.
Oh wow! How many did you guys get?
We got like 6, and then Andy and I were like, we don't want to do this anymore. Please stop.
Number one was Patrick Kane, so that was fun for everyone.
Oh,
yeah.
And then we knew James Van Riemsdyk because it was the debate between them, and then it was a lot of not.
Jamie Benn was in there. Voracek was in there. Sam Gagne was in there.
Yep.
Real poll if you could.
I got Kevin Shattenkirk. That was the only other one I got.
Poll.
So
anyway, to get back to my one last thing before trivia, if I remember correctly, there were 4 Blackhawks that were eligible for Rockford playoffs. 3 have already joined the team. It was Del Mastro, Levshunov, and Korchinski. Colton Dock has been dealing with hyperextended elbow, and he hadn't been sent down. Are they being cautious with him? Has there been any word on Rockford's side about his playoff availability, or is that still up in the air?
I think it's still up in the air. I know he's been skating for a few weeks up in Chicago, but you're right, Jimmy, that he was one of the 4 guys that Rockford was papered on the AHL trade deadline. There was actually one of the 2 in him and Del Mastro who were up at the time, and then 2 of those call-ups were saved for Levshunov and Korchinski, who, by the way, I thought they played great in both those stints up. I know Levshunov was up for a little bit longer, but that was pretty cool to see how seamlessly they transitioned up there. But yeah, we'll have to see. As far as Doc goes, he is eligible. Though even if you look at kind of just putting together the game 1 lineup together right now, as far as forwards go, it's a little bit of like who do you take out? Just because this is really the first time, like we were talking about, that it feels like the Hogs have a real full, complete lineup in quite some time. So it's a little TBD on that, I think, going forward.
And is the veteran rule still in place? Like they can only dress? Is that still in place for the playoffs?
It is, yes, but Rockford hasn't been up against that since on the trade deadline. They moved Brandon Baddock to Toronto, and kind of to rectify that problem, and also do a good thing for a player in Baddock that should be in a lineup every single night. So, but yeah, still in effect, but hasn't been an issue.
Perfect.
Okay. I appreciate you bringing that up, because that was a hurdle for a while, and nice to think about it with it not being an issue.
Yeah. Awesome. All right. So Rockford trivia here. We're gonna go.
Okay.
We got 2 questions. They're not. Trust me. They're not. I'm not going to have you list off 300 players. On the current IceHogs roster, who has the most AHL playoff goals?
Ooh, that's a good question. Okay. Can I talk through it a little bit?
Sure can.
Okay. I think I know the answer. Well, the guys that have played in the playoffs from the forward standpoint would be Athanasiou was with Grand Rapids. Joey Anderson has played minimal games. I don't think I'm throwing his name in there. Jerry Mayhew's the one that jumped out to me off the top, because he scored a lot of goals in this league. And granted, he has been with Iowa, who maybe wasn't not the most successful team as far as going to the postseason. Most goals or points?
Nope, goals.
Goals. So
And
not a Kevin Fitzgerald. I'm going to go Jerry Mayhew.
Jimmy, do you have an answer before I?
Oof, that's tough. I am gonna go Andreas Anthony just to cover the two forwards. My instinct was to do Mayhew, the mayor. I was like, oh, obviously, he had Lehigh Valley. I think he had experience there.
Even
Sure,
Charlotte.
Iowa. Yeah, he had Charlotte too. Charlotte's always in the playoffs. Iowa, he spent 2-3 years, I think, with, and I think he only made the playoffs once when he was with them. So that gave me pause.
Anyone
But
we're missing?
I mean,
Seeney's.
Yeah, the problem with Sini though, he's always been with Rockford, and not to bash him, but it's like they haven't made it past the first round in 4 years.
Yeah.
So
all right, I'm going to stick with Jerry.
And
I'll go.
Jerry is correct. He has 10
Come on.
playoff goals. He had 9 in the 2018-19 Iowa Wild season, 9 goals in 11 games, and then he had 1 last season with the Charlotte Checkers. So good job, guys. All right.
He was with Iowa when they were good.
The second question. Who has the most playoff games in Rockford IceHogs history? I'm going to butcher the guy's name. I'm just letting you know in advance.
So it's a tough name.
On the current roster, who's played the most playoff games?
In general.
In
Rockford IceHogs history, who has the most playoff goals? One guy did it in 1 playoff.
Okay, so I'm thinking it has to be the 2004 championship team.
I can even get.
Are we including the U-Haul or just AHL?
Just AHL. We're not including the U-Haul on this one.
Okay, so I was going to be like, 2004 Memorial Cup. Whose roster I don't know.
Which is the last championship for the Rockford IceHogs to win.
That's true.
I'm thinking it's the year that they went conference final against Texas.
You would be right.
God, what year was that?
2017, 2018.
That's right.
And you said you were going to butcher his name. That's a hint.
Yep. I mean, that's not hard, though. I butcher every name. I'm honest about it, David.
Yeah, you first want to call you Dana, but we had to talk.
No, that's not true.
I've gotten a lot worse.
That's not true. From somebody who gets called Cian very often, I would never call anyone.
You get Cian? No way.
I do. Yep.
Yeah, some people mess up my name. They call me moron. I don't get how you get that.
All right, so he was on the 2017-2018 Rockford IceHogs.
Yeah, we're getting away from
it was his second stint with the IceHogs. He played with them in 2010-2011, and he was a 6th round pick of the Toronto Maple Leafs in 2007. Yes, my dog is very excited about the answer.
2007 Toronto Maple Leafs. Man.
God, I don't know.
He's best known for his 27 games with the Ottawa Senators.
Oh. You have it?
He was traded for Ville Polk.
Cook, Jimmy. Cook.
Come on, Jimmy.
It's like DiDomenico or something.
Yes, that is correct.
I knew it because he was traded for Ville Polka. I remember the year.
He had 7 playoff goals in the Rockford IceHogs run in 2017-2018. 7 goals, 11 assists for 18 points in 13 games. Second place, Christopher Steen had 6. So that's the most playoff goals in Rockford IceHogs history.
Good questions, Cian. Good questions.
Thank you.
You want to know how I remember DiDomenico? After Rockford was eliminated, I remember him losing his mind on the bench, slamming his stick into the plexiglass behind the bench, flinging his stick onto the ice. He had a fit when Rockford was
against
eliminated.
Texas.
Oh yeah, it was. I remember seeing it all over Twitter. He was not happy at Rockford being eliminated.
And Dana, since we were talking about the NHL playoffs before you go, who do you like in the NHL playoffs?
It's a good question. I picked. I'm trying to remember who I picked. I picked the Avs.
Okay. Me too.
I think path-wise, they actually have a pretty reasonable path. That Robertson injury was just,
Oof.
I think that's kind of all the information I needed to know to pick that route. I like the Avs coming out of the West, and then out of the East, I have the Bolts.
Okay.
I think Tampa's going to actually roll through this playoff. I think they might beat Florida in 5 and Toronto in 5 and the Caps in 5 or something. I think this is Vasi's got one last hurrah before, and they're sneaky good. And I feel like no one's, maybe I'm not giving it enough credit, but I haven't heard a ton of talk about them as far as the damage that they can do on a run.
Nope, that's who I got. I've got Tampa.
You got Tampa? Oh,
I've got Tampa.
You got the Avs, Jimmy?
I have the Avs Tampa in the Stanley Cup Finals, Avs winning. And just so you know, last year in our Rinkcast bracket challenge, I picked Florida over Dallas. So I'm going back-to-back this year. I'm feeling great.
And maybe they'll get the emotional lift of Gabriel Landeskog playing Game 2.
How cool would that be? Oh, man.
That would be so cool. Coming back from that microfracture surgery. The
fact that his last game was when they literally – that's awesome.
Yeah.
That's so cool.
It's so weird to think Jonathan Toews played a more recent NHL game than Gabriel Landeskog. Like, I'm still wrapping my head around that timeline.
Yeah, that was a wild one.
And there was an NBA player who just came back. Oh, it was Lonzo Ball. Lonzo Ball had the same knee surgery, I believe, that Gabriel Landeskog had, and he just came back this season, and he's been out for 2 or 3 years. And Landeskog is going to come back this year, so maybe that's just the recovery time on that knee injury.
Yeah,
different sports, devastating knee injuries and that surgery. So. Awesome. Well, Dana, thank you very much for being on the show. We won't keep you.
Of course, guys.
There's a lot of stuff you can watch, so enjoy it. And the IceHogs series starts on Wednesday in Rockford, correct?
In Rosemont. So game one in Rosemont, and yes, game 2 Friday night in Rockford, and game 3 Sunday if necessary at 4:00. Tickets still available at icehogs.com.
Awesome.
There you go.
Yeah. Well, don't let those bums in Rosemont buy tickets for what is a home game, essentially. Don't let them travel, fans.
I'm excited to see what sort of crowd there is there Wednesday. Because always, whenever the Hogs play out there, it's weird because you get a lot of Blackhawks jerseys.
Yep.
And you're trying to decipher, okay, are they just fans of Chicago hockey, or are they affiliate fans, or So I'm sure we'll have a full hodgepodge out there Wednesday night.
Probably, more than likely, if I can. I keep meaning we had some construction done at my house, and I keep trying to dig out my Rockford IceHogs hat. So one of these times when you're on, I will have my Rockford IceHogs, my CCM Rockford IceHogs hat on. So
right on, man. Right on.
Well, appreciate
Good to see you guys. Yeah, of course.
Thank you again, and hopefully we'll be talking to you before the finals of the Calder Cup Finals.
All right, from your lips, man. I'm with it. That sounds great. Good to see you guys. See you soon.
Good to see you too, Dana.
Good to see you, Dana.
That was Dana Gray of the Rockford IceHogs. You can check Dana out on Twitter. It's I believe it's Dana, just at Dana Gray, I believe, on the old social media. Jimmy, before we get out of here, I have been some Blackhawks coaching rumors. David Carl has been the rumor that's been circulated the most. What are your thoughts on David Carl being the potential hire?
I've made this known before. Hold on. My dog is just wanting to come in, so I will just let him in so that he doesn't scratch
dogs on parade. It's okay. Instead of bulls on parade, we have dogs on parade. We got it.
Hey, bud. Come here. Say hi. But I mean, I'm a fan. I've said before, and I'll say it again. He was never my first choice. I was always very hesitant on him. I've seen tweets and I've seen it all before. It's been a long time since an NHL coach has come straight from college and has had success. I know many people talk about Jim Montgomery, and he's a great coach. Don't get me wrong. He's a very good coach. I think he's capable of winning a championship at the NHL level. But it's taken him a very, very long time to get to this level. My dog just dropped a toy down the stairs. Anyway, but yeah, I'm not against it. I think he'd be a great teacher. I think he'd be able to relate to the young guys. I think he could grow with the team. I think he can grow with the organization. That being said, history is not kind to coaches like David Carl. I'm not going to lose sleep if he is not the guy at the end of the day, if the Blackhawks go a different direction. There's a lot of guys I like. I've mentioned it before. I really like Mike Sullivan. I even like Jay Woodcroft. I feel like he's gotten the short end of the stick. He has a great winning percentage. He's a very young coach. I think he'd be a good fit for this Blackhawks team. All I'll say is, and I'll finish my rant very quickly, I would never say no to Carl. I think he'd be a good coach for this team. I worry about his longevity. I worry about if he can translate to the NHL. But the only way to find out if he can is if he gets a job. That being said, I'm not going to lose sleep if you don't hire him. I think there's a lot of really good hires out there. Top of my list would be Mike Sullivan or, as I mentioned, Woodcroft. So that's my opinion so far on the David Carl rumors.
Yeah, those are some good thoughts there, Jimmy. And I tend to agree with you in terms of Carl wasn't my first choice either, but I wouldn't be upset if they did hire him. I guess it all depends on what the situation is. Like if they expect to win next year, which I don't think is possible, but I don't think they can make the playoffs next season, then Carl's probably the right guy, because then you guys, the team and Carl, can develop like you said. But if they're hoping to take the next step, like a big jump, then maybe it's not David Carl. Maybe it's somebody else who's been fired more recently. We've seen the NHL coaching carousel kind of kick into higher gear. Brett Bilsma of the Seattle Kraken was fired today after one season at the helm of the Seattle Kraken. Peter Laviolette has been let go. Rick Tocchet was released today fired from the Vancouver Canucks.
And that's been confirmed?
I thought he was fired. Was he not?
I have not heard it.
Contract, I thought.
Let me quickly check. I did not see
whoever the old guy was talking about Quinn Hughes playing with his brothers. I thought he's prefaced it before Tocchet was let go.
Oh, okay. Now I'm seeing it. Yeah. Sorry.
Yeah.
I did not see Jim Rutherford's comments about not renewing the contract.
No, Jim Rutherford's comments are a viral sensation. So if you haven't
what he said about the Hughes thing,
yeah,
that was insanity.
Just pure insanity. And unfortunately for Vancouver fans, it's more of they're trying to wait out a bad owner, similarly to White Sox fans in Chicago, and it's not happening anytime soon.
Yeah, I kind of compare what's the name of that Canucks owner? He's allegedly a terrible human being too. Like I think he's a lot like Dan Snyder of the former Washington Commanders. He's not a guy. From what I hear, he's not a guy that is conducive to a good situation. And I kind of want to, launch that into what is going on with their 2023 first round pick. What was his name? Tom Willander. This is a direct quote from Tom Willander's advisor, Todd Diamond. Our intent was and is to turn pro, but if we don't agree to a contract that Tom and his family are comfortable with, returning to BU, obviously Boston University, and other situations become possible over the next few seasons. That to me, and some people interpreted it as, he wants contract demands, which you can't do on an entry level.
The only thing you could get more of would be the Schedule A or Schedule B bonuses. That's the only leverage you have.
Yeah. I took that more as Tom Willander is waiting out the BS that this organization is spewing out. He's waiting out Rutherford because he probably doesn't want him there. He's waiting out the coaching situation. He's waiting out what they're going to do with guys like Pettersson and Hughes. I mean, and with comments that, again, Jim Rutherford said today, he's like, I think he said it was insane. It was, if the Hughes brothers want to play together, it's out of our hands unless we get the other two Hughes brothers to Vancouver, then it is in our hands. I'm like, what is this? What is that comment, Jim? What are you talking about?
Like, did he wander out of a retirement home with that? I don't understand that. And I know I'm making some ageism jokes here, but that was.
But yeah, I mean, that's a very weird thing to say about, in my opinion, probably a multi-time Norris winner.
Yep.
Will be. I mean, it's the best defenseman when healthy in the league. I would genuinely take Quinn Hughes over guys like Makar and anyone else. Really, I would
say, what about Slavin? I'm just throwing it out.
Sorry, I love you, Eric. Eric's our big Slavin fan, but I'm taking Quinn Hughes over Jacob Slavin 10 times out of 10.
Okay.
Quinn Hughes, in my opinion, is the best defenseman in the league.
Even over Cale Makar.
Even over Cale Makar. I'm not even hesitating. I think if Quinn Hughes, with the production he had this year and how important he was to Vancouver's success, sure, they didn't succeed, but it was because he was hurt. I mean, if he played all 82, I would say at least 75 games, he wins the Calder outright. I don't think it would have been a competition. But yeah, I mean, to say the stuff about Quinn Hughes and being like so about being like, oh, we won't be able to control him staying here is like, are you out of your depth? Are you out of your mind? Like, your comment should be, yeah, we're keeping Quinn Hughes under every circumstance. If that means we have to try to get Jack and Luke, we will do everything in our power to keep that, possible. Like, even alluding to the idea that you have no control over Quinn Hughes staying with your organization, that's out of control. But yeah.
Yeah, I that was more like word vomit. I don't really understand why. I guess I appreciate the transparency and the honesty, but it seems like he's like basically giving up on Quinn Hughes staying with the organization, which is not really uplifting to a fan base who didn't make the playoffs this year. You don't know what they're going to do with Pettersson in the offseason. They already traded JT Miller. Like, it just seems like a bad situation going on up in Vancouver there.
You traded JT Miller and then turned around and traded away that first-round pick you got for him and got Marcus Pettersson, who, by the way, Marcus Pettersson is very solid. Don't get me wrong. But I thought that, especially with how the Rangers were playing, I think that was a really weird trade. It was like, oh, we got rid of this guy, but we still want to compete, even though we just made our team far worse.
Yep.
It from top to bottom, Vancouver is just a mess. And I understand, well, Will Anders, like, I am not signing here.
Yeah. Okay. Jimmy, before we get out of here, do you have any shout outs tonight? I think we'll keep it a little shorter tonight because it's just you and me after Dana Wood left.
Any shout outs? I think one shout out I want to make, not really a shout out, but more of a call of notice. We received news, obviously, today through, multiple sources about the Blackhawks streaming market loss.
Yeah.
What we saw, and this was Ben Pope retweeting, he said Blackhawks TV rating reportedly down 78% on CHSN. I think this also goes along with the Chicago Bulls also losing over 60% of their market share. 63%. I mean, I put this more obviously on CHSN just being an absolute headache for everyone involved. And my hope is that Jerry Reinsdorf feels it with the White Sox this year and goes, crap, I got to do something. And yeah, I would say the only good thing about that is at least it was a bad season for the Blackhawks and the fans weren't missing much. Hopefully when it gets back to being a workable situation, it'll be something more fans want to see. But yeah, that's a tough thing to see as a fan of the team. I mean, my family has DirecTV. CHSN is on DirecTV. I have not had that problem. Plus I've had other means of streaming the Blackhawks, off the record. But it's upsetting to a market who highly relies on Comcast. And I'm just going to say the best quote for this is, I'm not going to blame any single person. The apocalypse is a group project. And this feels like the apocalypse right now in terms of just getting a team on TV. But we got to Blackhawks got to spend the summer, and CHSN has to spend the summer getting people to the table. But okay, we got to get the sports on TV. Even we got to figure out a real deal here, and it's going to have to be a zero-sum game for everyone involved. People are going to have to lose to enable to win.
Yeah, and Jimmy, that's great that you brought that up. I've been highly invested in that all year long. Like you said, Ben Pope reported that they lost 78%, I think you said, of their viewership, myself included. This weekend, also, WGN Sports released a statement saying they're willing to carry White Sox, Bulls, and Hawks games again, similar to before when Comcast Sports Network and ultimately NBC Sports Network, which turns into Comcast Sports Network, or vice versa, was initially launched. The reports are WGN is willing to take on 10 to 15 Hawks games a year. So that would be people in the Chicagoland area could watch CHSN simulcast on WGN, which, yes, it might anger Comcast Cable in terms of, kind of circumventing them, because CHSN is a local channel that can be picked over via the air, but also broadcast on CHSN. But Michael Reinsdorf, the chairman of the Bulls, said in an article that Comcast has been negotiating in bad faith. So while I was positive last podcast about CHSN being simulcast on WCIU for one game, all that confidence has been eroded with the Michael Reinsdorf's comments coming public, the 78% of viewers being lost from CHSN this year, and WGN now throwing its hat in this ring to broadcast some games. So if WGN gets some games, Blackhawks fans who don't have DirecTV, who don't want to set up an antenna, who don't want to pay $30 a month for CHSN, could have the opportunity to watch 1/8 of games this year, like 10 games, whatever that is. Yeah, 1/8, I believe it is, of the games this season, and then possibly pick up more if they're nationally televised. All in all, like Jimmy said, it's just a bad situation, and they need to get it resolved. Hopefully they will, but ego is a very, very bad thing when it comes to negotiations, and sometimes cooler heads do not prevail. The Yes Network was not on TV in New York for the last 3 seasons. So just putting that out there. Thanks for bringing that up, Jimmy. I wanted to give a shout out before we get out of here to the U.S. Women's World Championship team winning the World Championships again. U.S. gold. Always nice to see Team USA, whether it's men or women, beating Canada in hockey. So shout out to them. And then I wanted to say shout out to Gabriel Landeskog, who could be coming back for game. They said he was going to be available for game 2. Just such perseverance with that man, trying to overcome that knee injury, which hasn't played in 2 to 3 seasons, I believe. So shout out to him in that regard.
Yeah, it's really cool to see him back. I have not been able. I think him and his agency produced a documentary about his recovery.
Oh,
I don't know where it is. I don't know where it's available, but I'm very interested in seeing that because, like I mentioned earlier in this pod, Jonathan Toews has played an NHL game 10 months more recently than Landeskog. Last time Landeskog played an NHL game, Shane Wright wasn't a Kraken. Connor Bedard was a year away from being drafted. I mean, it's absurd to think about. The Vegas Golden Knights and the Florida Panthers were cupless franchises at that time. It's absurd to think about how long he's been gone. And I'll always respect how much Colorado loves the guy. They didn't give his seat away. They didn't at all for these last 2 years. They're like, Landeskog is our captain.
Yep.
Either the only way he is no longer the captain is if he says he retires. And I will always appreciate the Avalanche for sitting and waiting and basically yep, he's our captain no matter what. I don't care how long he's out. He's going to have that seat until he hangs it up. And that's why I have him going all the way. That forward depth is insane. I mean, look at their centers now. It's McKinnon, Nelson, Coyle, who they play on the wing often, and Drury. You put Landeskog in there and you could put Carl to the wing. I mean, that's an absurd forward depth. And their defensive depth has gotten so much better too. So, yeah, I mean, perfect timing. And if Landeskog is 80% of what he normally is, I think this team can steamroll anyone.
Yeah. It'll be interesting to see. We'll see how if he gets into game 2. That's the rumor right now circling out there. So we'll see. Jimmy, if you don't have any final thoughts, we'll wrap it up for the evening.
I guess one last little shout out. I got to shout out someone that has persevered just as much as Gabe Landeskog. My mom, what a warrior. Last 2 weeks, 2 weeks ago, she had throat surgery because of some ailments, and then last week she had back surgery.
Oh, wow.
So my mom has been in and out of the hospital room getting surgeries done, and two places that is not fun to recover from. Throat surgery and back surgery is no joke. So gotta give a shout out to Mama O'Malley. Incredible perseverance. It's been great to see her doing so much better.
Shout out to Mama O'Malley. All right, that'll do it for us tonight on the Chicago Rinkcast. Stay tuned to the Rink, though. We will be back. We will have some NHL draft coverage coming up. I know we'll be around probably for the lottery, and we'll definitely be around for the draft. So stay tuned to the Rink. All right, I'm Sean Fitzgerald on behalf of Jimmy O'Malley. Thank you very much.